as you said, a football.
I told you he was a good football player.
And I finally get past the casting director, and I finally get a meeting with Mr. Parks. And I walk into the office, and he says, well, we're looking for... I said, you know, Mr. Parks, I know your son, David. And Mr. Parks looked at me and... And he said, well, we're looking for someone that looks someone like this. And he points to a ad. I forgot what the ad was for, but it was an ad that I had done a year ago. I said, that's me. And he looked at the ad, and he looked at me and said, A couple of days later, I got a call back for a screen test. And the screen test, I don't know what a screen test is about. I know what an audition for a play is about. I don't know what an audition for a film is about. And the discouraging thing was that I walked in, and I looked at this actor who had just come out, Nathan George. I'd just seen him on Broadway. I was off Broadway in a play called No Place to Be Somebody, and he was incredible. And I said, well, this is going to be an interesting exercise. Learn from this and move on, because you're not going to get this role. And I went in. That's a whole long story. That screen test was just incredible. I walked out and said that I learned a lot. Dissolve come up again. I get a call on my answering machine back then saying, call Mr. Gordon Parks. And I called him up and I said, yes, this is Richard Roundtree calling Mr. Parks. And he says, well, looks like you got the role. So yes, but you can't say anything about it because this is the end of the year and it'll get lost in the press, so we're not going to announce anything until after New Year's. I said, can I call my parents? So yes, you can tell your parents about it, but you know, keep it quiet. I'm walking around Manhattan with all my fellow actors and whatnot, and invariably they're saying, you know what, I think I might have gotten that role of shit out. And after you hear this 3 or 4 times, you think, wait a minute, was that a dream? But what happened was we had a big event at Sardi's. Now, you know, having driven a cab around Manhattan, seeing Sardi's and the Palm, and I said, one day, and it happened. Big event at Sardi's restaurant.
And Sardi's, the great theatrical restaurant you all know in New York City.
All of the press and whatnot, and Gordon announces that, and ladies and gentlemen, the star of our film, Richard Roundtree.
Tell me something, what was the first scene you did in Shaft?
The first scene in Shaft was the opening of the film. And, it was so cold. And Gordon says, listen, there are 3 cameras. One up there, one up there, and one up there. And when you come out of that subway, I want you to own this area of Times Square. I want you to cross this street and don't give a damn about the traffic. I want you to cross this street, but I want you to own it. Yes. And it worked.
Well, you do own it. And all of you, we want to note this tonight when he comes up out of the subway at the opening. Because I've often, what were you thinking as you made your way through that traffic? Because you do own it. You do own it.
I can't begin to tell you. The only moment that I remember was when that cabbie honked at me and I was in the middle of the street. And that was a total ad-lib.
It was great. I mean, you were totally in character. I mean, for this to be your first scene, and this film early in your film career to just navigate those streets, no dialogue, it's all coming from inside your head. I mean, it is a great sequence.
But that's all Gordon Parks. It's all Gordon Parks. His direction and his overview of who this character was, which was Gordon Parks.
By the way, Gordon Parks, the director, is in the movie. Can you tell us that sequence? Because you really look like father and son in a sense.
Really?
Yeah, you do.
Well, there's a scene in a Harlem apartment. I'm trying to garner information, and I knock on this door, and I open the door, and he opens the door, and there's Gordon standing there, and it's a Hitchcock moment. And I wish I could do Gordon, but I can't. But he opens the door, and just his whole persona, his attitude. No, I haven't seen him.
You know, there's something else I want to just ask you, because we were talking about this. You know, when they do parodies of movies of this period, blaxploitation, this is not a blaxploitation film. It comes before all of that. But nonetheless, you said to me they get the clothes for Shaft all wrong. And Gordon took you to his tailor, right?
Gordon said, boy, I was so green. Gordon took me to his tailor and says, I want you to meet a gentleman who's going to do your clothes. As a matter of fact, he does all of my clothes. I said, oh, well, I know I'm in good shape. His name escapes me at the moment. But he did all the clothes for Michael Douglas in
Wall Street.
Yes, the first one. Elegant tailor. And Gordon says, fix the kid up.
Well, he really did. I mean, that leather jacket. I mean, and you know how to wear those clothes. One thing else, I mean, we should note that there were other Shafts. There was Shaft's Big Score. There was Shaft in Africa. There was the TV series where I think they took away a lot of the characters' grit. And
really?
I think so. The TV series. But nonetheless, I'm just surprised that the Shaft franchise didn't go on longer. Because I think it's still, the fact that they tried to remake it in 2000, I think it still does have this currency today. You know, Richard, we wanted to ask you here at the TCM Festival, what's been the highlight of the festival for you?
The highlight was, I guess it was 2 nights ago, they screened American in Paris, with Leslie Caron. And the after party, I overheard someone say that Peter O'Toole was here. Peter O'Toole was here. It has been over 20 years since I've seen this man. And we did a film together back in Puerto Vallarta called
Man Friday.
Man Friday.
Yeah.
And Peter O'Toole is magical. I found him amongst a group of people, and I said, Peter, and he looked up and said, Richard. And we sat down and we talked, and it was the highlight of the week.
Well, you know something, you were a highlight for him, because he said, so I think it was Tom Brown who told me, that for him the excitement was meeting Mickey Rooney and seeing Richard. So he has never forgotten working with you. And we have not forgotten. We're going to have to get the film started. But Richard, really, this film is 40 years old, and I think it's still fresh and vibrant.
35.
And let's give a hand for the great